She was in the sun. She was in So I'm going to start with the cups. I might say more now than what I do in the written description. More messages might come through. I have a rune table here as well, and I'll cast the runes if I need more information. What I did cast the runes and just said like an overview. What is the blocks with the cups? And I know it's, procrastination, low self-esteem. That's like the overall theme when it's a block. But when I cast the runes, it also showed me that it's acting on bad advice, having poor programming, so having believed into a belief system that is really not beneficial. So it can be just like living kind of a belief out, making it come true and seeing it coming true, but it's not the whole picture. So it becomes very maybe negative and cynical all the time. So you have to allow yourself that the opposite can be true. An example is someone I went to school with. Her father cheated on her mom, so she said, all men cheat. That was her absolute truth. That was her reality. So she might manifest cheaters, or have that expectation, and never being able to really trust. So that's a belief that that was her truth, but if she could have seen it for this like an illusion. People that really want to be in a relationship need to reprogram everything we've been taught about men, like from a woman's perspective. We've been taught often that men don't want marriage, men don't want commitment. So now we need to reprogram that men loves marriage, men loves commitment. And men, I probably have similar programs about women that are not going to be so great. One common one here in Australia is that all women want is money. That women just want money. So that's a program that needs to be changed. It's just going to end up manifesting itself because people believe in it so much. So let's get started with Ace of Cups. So Ace of Cups is all about your potential in life. It's about a potential to have love, potential to have spiritual enlightenment, the opening of the heart, letting love in, being inspired. It's actually inspiration more than anything. But when it's a block, it's almost like the seeker is pushing all that away. They don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to have that inspiration and be hopeful. They think that leads to terrible things, so they're pushing it away. And they often run from their problems rather than dealing with them straight on. They could fill themselves up with resentment rather than positive emotions. And the resentment is serving as a barrier, as a boundary, and sometimes also help the seeker ground themselves as well. So they're off balance, and when they decide they are going to give of themselves, they give too much. So it's like they either give it all and it's too much, or they give nothing. So it's either too much boundary or no boundary. So this stems often from childhood programming. So if this is your block, look at what did you believe about yourself? What were you told about yourself? And were your boundaries respected as a child? That's what you're working on in Ace of Cups when it's a block. So you are learning to find your balance. You need to find yourself, your identity in Ace of Cups when it's a block. So Two of Cups, it's one of the stage cards in the Rider-Waite deck. It's like putting someone first, putting a partner first, putting someone front and center, being very proud of someone, being very proud of their relationship, focusing on the partner. The partner gives the emotional stability and the happiness. But when it's a block, it's almost like where there should have been that support and the love, there's actually more fake. There's like fakery, fake people, lies. Could be being lied to in a relationship, or unable to be truthful themselves in a relationship. So the seeker could have some very challenging beliefs about relationships. They could really perhaps not even believe in relationships at all on a deeper level. and they choose to see the other person they're in a relationship with as who they decide they're going to be rather than who they actually are. And they themselves put a mask on as well, and they decide they're going to be this person. And wanting the other person to see who they want them to see rather than being themselves. So, Two of Cups, when it shows up as a block, it's time to change those beliefs, because often there is going to be a change in relationship status. So, there's something very karmic going on in relationships. Someone new could come in. Or if you're single, someone would most likely come in that could either take advantage of this belief, kind of like a love fraud type person, or someone that like Mr. Right or Mrs. Right is coming in, and then you're not ready. So time to change those beliefs, find out what you actually believe about relationship. What's the worst thing that can happen if you are happy in a relationship? You know, if you don't have something and that you really want, find out what is the worst thing that can happen if you have it. Because it's almost like the mind is pushing away. And Two of Cups, it's all about pushing away relationship, manifesting bad relationships, or sabotaging good relationships. So, Three of Cups, you know, celebration amongst friends, happiness, joy. And working in a group, being part of a group. When it is toxic, when it's a challenge and a block, it is conflict in the group. So people that used to get on, don't get on anymore. Could be lies again, that's at the heart of it, manipulations, insecurities. It's a lot of frustration in Three of Cups when it's a block, and it's almost like the seeker feel frustrated, and they could take that frustration all out on someone. It's like they feel like they have to work extremely hard for everything that they've got, but it's not, they don't get the rewards that they're seeking. It's like they don't expect success, they expect failure. And even in personal relationships and friendships and in the group, they expect failure, they expect to be let down on some level. There's just personality clashes, but it's like the ego is very vulnerable, it's very fragile, it's easy to get hurt, triggered and upset. Things that shouldn't be an issue becomes an issue in Three of Cups when it's a block. So here it's about seeing the big picture, enjoy life, see the big picture. What do you want? Do you want to be triggered for every little thing, or do you want to enjoy your life? Do you want to be tiptoeing on eggshells around someone who's constantly being triggered, emotional, they get upset? Or do you want to be around people who you can just relax and be yourself with? So that's the challenge in the block in the Three of Cups, but that's also what you're working on as well. So sometimes people are so sensitive in Three of Cups that they end up attracting also very negative people who reinforces that negative programming. Okay, so Four of Cups is one of those cup cards that's not that positive when it's upright either. It's often being like just very comfortable, so comfortable that it's uncomfortable. When it's a block, it intensifies that feeling. So it's like, it's really dissatisfaction. But here it's a bit deeper than just emotional dissatisfaction. Sometimes it is actually also a lack of money, a lack of financial security. And it makes it hard for the seeker to act in the situation because they have so many fears around abundance. And there could be real fears. So they need to actually set up a bit of a financial plan for themselves, how to create more safety and security around themselves on the financial level. And they need to have an actual plan, not wishful thinking. It has to be real. The seeker could be so dissatisfied on the material plane, on this life, physical earth existence, that they just want to escape it to the point where they just don't have any resources. They don't want to apply themselves to, earn a living. So they end up having very little as a result. And they could end up being very dependent on others for their survival. And if money is not an issue, then this card means that the seeker, because they don't have really any reason to, because money isn't an issue, then they don't have really that need to find their purpose or what will fulfill them. So they're not even seeking it. They could just be in a rut, in a bad habit of kind of passivity. They're just very passive and they can't get out of it. It's a real struggle to get out of the passivity. And they really need to find their life direction, and they need to think outside the box. So 5 of Cups is negative card. It's grieving, it's sadness, it's something has not worked out and they need to rebuild their lives, and something they turn their back on. They might actually have to go and apologize to people that they've hurt. Maybe they have turned their back on their old friends to pursue new friends. They got let down, but their old friends are still here. They need to reach out, they need to be humble, they maybe even apologize. It can also be relationships that didn't work out and now they need their old friends back to help them recover. So it's like turning back to something old, something that was there for them, but maybe they wanted to chase something new. So 5 of Cups is quite a negative card because it's not a good energy to be in. But when it is a block and a challenge, it's kind of like intensified. It becomes grief that it's unable to turn around to be humble. The humble pie is not going to be made nor eaten. Like it's inability to apologize. But it's like for some reason they've lost trust and faith at a very deep level. Faith and trust. So they can't even function in many areas of their life. This can be a card when it's a block that affects you on so many areas. So this is a really good idea if you get this in a situation and it's triggering this response in you, to really clear it up. It can be a situation where someone is so critical as well. Someone could have been so critical of you when you were growing up, that you have that mindset that you are being so critical to yourself as well. Maybe your self-esteem has been completely wiped out and the seeker is living in constant guilt and shame, and they're just taking it out on everybody. They often lash out when this is a block. They lash out. They want to hurt others the way they've been hurt, or they just go and completely damage and hurt themselves more to punish themselves more. So it's a bad spiral. It's a negative cycle to be in. Sometimes it means the seeker is very deeply in love with somebody who doesn't love them back. And they can't get the person out of their mind. They can only focus on that person. They can't get past the relationship. It could have been a relationship that ended that they just can't get over. So it's like prolonged heartache that causes just too much pain in them, and they don't know how to live in that pain. So this card, it's healing needed, but it's like the seeker is so afraid to let go of that pain as well, because now there's identity connected to it, and they don't know who they are without it. So connect to Creator of all, ask the Creator to gently take it off you and give you the sense of self again, and happiness again, and worthiness and self-esteem. Sometimes this as well can mean that the seeker just can't be on their own and they're just going to escape straight into another relationship, or they're escaping the pain of relationships either by being in new relationships or in other ways, but it's actually not healthy for them. They need to find their own identity, and they need to get that sense of self and live on their own terms more. So 6 of Cups is a little bit gentler, but it's 6 of Cups speaks often of our childhood, our memories, where we feel at home. We often recreate something in our adult life because of what we experienced in our childhood, or where we really feel at home in our lives is because of something from our childhood. So we might recreate even in our workplaces and in our relationships the feelings that we had as children. Now when it's reversed, and blocks and challenges are a little bit different from reverse, but when it is reversed, it's almost like they only have bad memories. They can't recreate positive new situations. They're kind of just remembering bad stuff. So when they're creating a good life for themselves, they don't have they don't know what it really feels like. So they need to work on what it feels like to be safe honored, loved, respected, and all these things. When Six of Cups is a block and a challenge, it embodies a little bit of that. It is that they don't really expect good things, and they could not trust in the situations that are actually quite good for them, because they might lack that reference point that this is a good situation. They don't trust it. They feel like they're in unknown territory, and they could be very afraid or even expect betrayal. So because they're so kind of insecure on that level, they are in danger of actually betraying others as a result, and turning their backs on people that actually really care about them. Sometimes Six of Cups denotes creative blocks more than anything, but the seeker actually have really creative gifts within them, but their block is like they don't believe in themselves, so those stories can't come out. But they have such a vivid imagination that if they start writing it down, it can become amazing storytelling. Sometimes this card, as when it is a block and a challenge, it means that someone is very creative, but they live inside a non-creative place. Like it can be a workplace that's just very rigid with policies and procedures. There's no room to move. There's no creativity there. The situation where they're at does not promote their creativity. So Six of Cups as a block can simply mean that where you are now is not promoting your creativity, and you need to find a more creative, uplifting and inspirational sort of environment to be in for you to thrive. Okay, so Seven of Cups is actually quite a positive card. It's not like a light bulb moment, aha moment kind of card, but it speaks of daydreaming, of kind of escaping a little bit into just turning off, being able to relax, being able to just watch a movie without being restless and having to check your phone every 5 minutes kind of thing. Being able to be absorbed in a story. And when it's on a block and a challenge, it can be that it's intensified, that you're just kind of stuck in kind of consuming maybe too much TV, too much internet, too much social media, but maybe that's kind of going a little bit too far. It's not just turning off and recharging the batteries, it's become the whole lifestyle. So the seeker begins to perhaps feel like their life is very superficial. Maybe they feel like their life is kind of a little bit meaningless on that level, that they're just kind of like consuming other people's ideas and products rather than they're not their own kind of they're not maybe thinking for themselves. Maybe they're just consuming ideas as well. They're not living from the inside out. They're kind of living from the outside in instead. and in some cases, when it really is a challenge and a block, like when it's really intensified, it could mean that the seeker really feel like they've lost complete touch with God and something bigger than themselves. So they start searching for other things that can take that place. So that's when I see people really starting to be obsessed over that. They want the perfect government system. They want the perfect kind of like ruling class idea. But that's taking over where we should be actually spiritually connected. There is no true atheist, everyone wants something bigger than themselves to kind of be our Lord and Savior. But when it's not God, when it's not divinity, then we start thinking of people that way. And that's when we can be in big trouble actually, and we lose completely perspective on who we are and why we're even here. So this could be a need for spiritual resuscitation when this kind is like the lost touch with divinity, and why on a personal note, why they're there, but also why us as a group, as us humans, what are we really doing here? It's like they've kind of lost that was really the point of it all. So it just feels really meaningless. So with Seven of Cups, there's a bit of spiritual resuscitation needed. The seeker really needs to start asking bigger and better questions, find out more on a deeper level, why are they even here? What are they doing? They need to have their prayer answered. They need to have a connection to God. With Seven of Cups, it's like they're always taking on other people's ideas, but what does it mean for you in this situation? What does it mean for you? So you need to have your own personal experiences that no one can take away from you. And so be careful who you share it with. That's another thing with Seven of Cups. People sometimes share too much of themselves. And they're not getting validation. They're getting more de-evaluated. So Seven of Cups, don't ask for validation, especially not online or really anywhere. Seek that validation within and start seeking a higher connection with God and get validation that way. That's a much better way. So with Eight of Cups, it's a little similar to Seven of Cups. It's like they don't know what life they should be living, so they end up consuming or just taking on other people's ideas. Or they just follow kind of like a pattern or belief that someone else has created. Maybe it's beneficial up to a point, but at some point they also need to think for themselves as well. So with Eight of Cups, when it's a block, find out on what level or in what area have you stopped thinking for yourself, or perhaps you just feel like you go and check what someone else's opinion is on the matter, and then you kind of like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. What do you think when you get all the facts and you do your own? And also again, it has to do with a spiritual connection as well. Get creator or God and creator is the same. Perspective and truth on the situation, and you'll have a shift in your consciousness. You start to think, you have like those aha moments, and you start, okay, maybe it's more like this and that. But when Eight of Cups is a block, it's like the seeker feel like they have no free will, and they feel like they're not living a free life. They have no free will. And also they stop seeing the meaning in what they have. So there's a danger here in throwing away something really good for something less, or not seeing the value in something and not pursuing it, and letting a real good opportunity go away, like pass you by. And then it's like not seeing the value in something, being too cynical. So the seeker needs to see the meaning of everyday life, see the opportunities coming to them. If not, it's too easy for someone to swoop in and take it all away from you, manipulate you, sabotage it for you. And also often in this card, someone in your life, someone new, someone charming, perhaps it's not exactly what they seem. Maybe it's too good to be true. Maybe something is being presented to you that is too good to be true. But it's almost like there's a lot of shiny objects, a little bit like Seven of Cups. A lot of shiny objects, a lot of people, very shiny, but maybe they're not shiny in the right way. Maybe it's all a bit of an illusion. They're not really that shiny. When you dig a little bit deeper into who they are, it's all very superficial. So the answer is not out there. Like, the answer is within. It's a cliche, but the answer really is within. Sometimes we need to hear from speakers and gurus to even have a reference point, so Creator can speak to us, so that we can have a divine connection, because we could be too lost, and we need a reference point to even, there's just too much, and we don't even know where we're going, so we need a reference point. But at some point, we really need to start looking within. How do we feel, and why do we feel the way we do? Why do we act the way we do? On a very personal level with Eight of Cups. So Eight of Cups, you see, the person is actually turning away from a lot of the material to go into themselves, and they want to be in nature to do this. It's easier. So when it's a block, you could be so distracted by everything that's going on that you're unable to walk away. It's too entertaining out there. It's too much entertainment. It's like you need to turn away from all of that, all the drama. It's very entertaining, but when this is a block, it means now it's time to go within and be a bit more still. So when Nine of Cups is a block, the seeker could be dealing with jealous behavior, either from others or how they're feeling themselves. They could be very jealous and a bit possessive. They have some insecurity issues due to family, often trauma or lack of bonding with family members. That early stage when we meant to have our bonding with our parents, if that hasn't happened properly, or maybe it was maybe something went wrong there, the seeker could have felt rejected and abandoned. And they could feel like they were always pushed us away, pushed on the outer. So now they feel like they're always living on the outside. It's hard for them to be part of things, to get into it. It can cause social anxiety and issues with how they bond with their peers. And also how they connect in relationships. They could be very afraid to make a deeper bond. And also they could feel like they're under constant attack. They could have that criticism constantly in their mind because they have been criticized so much that now they're kind of living under that they feel their body is constantly in stress, feeling they're being attacked, so they're overly self-conscious here. So when this card is upright and healthy, it's someone who has achieved a lot and they're very proud and they've proven to themselves that they absolutely can do it. But it's a block. It's like the insecurities is taking over. The seeker is much more capable than what they are aware of. When they enter into a situation, they can absolutely do it, whatever it takes, but they just don't think they can, and that blocks it straight away. And that leads to, again, grief. And grief can lead to anger and resentment, but it's usually grief at the bottom of this. So it's more heartaches. It's like a cycle again of heartache. And then escapes through addictions, and it's not just drugs and alcohol. It is also, you can escape through work, moving, through consuming, through too much time on the internet. Like, there's so many ways to escape not having to feel. But here, ask the Creator to heal the trauma of that happened in the bonding process when you were a child. And I always ask for this in the highest and best way, because you don't need to stress about if this healing is going to work, or saying highest and best way with grace and ease takes that off your chest as well. Like, because there's a lot of worry in this card, worry that something's going to go wrong, not trusting in anybody to do the right thing, expecting people to do the wrong thing. It's just a lot of stress in this card when it's a block. That was not the right card. Here we go. So, I'm releasing soon a book about numerology in tarot, so that you understand what these numbers mean and how it affects the meaning of the card. And that also affects how the blocks show up. So what I said about Nine of Cups, that didn't make any sense to you. It actually is very connected also to the number as well. But Ten of Cups, when it's a block, it's almost like, and I do write about what the 0 means when it ends up being a challenge, and it shows itself often in reversed cards. So 10, 1 and 0. With all the zeros, it's some kind of blessing going on. It's a gift. It often shows itself in talent, spirituality, inspirations, and good things coming to the seeker. Really good, positive, happy things, like gifts from Creator, When it is a block or a challenge, you can also see it when it's reversed. It's like that blessing that's no longer a blessing. It can be a blessing that feels more like a curse. It's like when you really appreciated something so much that when it's time to move on from it, you can't, because you feel ungrateful if you do. And a blessing, it's like it's a blessing, and the positives in our lives that ends up stopping us and blocking us because we don't dare to move past it. It's like, if I feel like, let's say you were homeless and you ended up with a home. But that home was like a blessing. It was like a gift. It was the best thing that ever happened to you. But then it's time to move on from that house. The house is full of mold. The house is it's just unhealthy. It's in a bad neighborhood. It was good for the purpose of taking off the street, But it was never going to be the long-term solution. But if you have that, this was such a blessing, then that's such an attachment as well. And that's very hard to let go of. So blessings are often more powerful than curses in that sense, that a curse, you can see it for what it is, you can reject it, move past it. See, this was a bad situation, I'm leaving this situation. I'm rejecting this energy. But when someone is presenting itself as a blessing, it's much harder to let go of, and that is also the block here. In 10 of Cups, it's like unable to move forward and holding oneself back because being afraid of what that means if you move beyond or past a blessing. So there's a lot of fears here. And it's often fears of, it's actually a fear of, it's actually, again, it's a lack of self-esteem in that. And that shows itself often in being afraid of commitments. It's like being afraid of happiness, being afraid of all the good things in life. Not believing that relationship will last. Maybe not thinking it's not possible to have a stable and lasting relationship. Being very afraid of intimacy. Being on an emotional roller coaster. So the secret, so if someone is in a relationship, they make their partner very confused because they're living on an emotional roller coaster. And the partner doesn't understand what's going on, so it pulls them into it as well. If it's a relationship that was a blessing, but the seeker now wants to leave the relationship, they might be unable to because of the blessing that they felt in a relationship. Often it's like they're not able to perhaps even be themselves in a relationship. So what they want is time alone so they can be themselves. So they feel like they have to be someone else. And they get very drained when they're with other people, when they're in relationships. They need so much time alone, but it has to do with how they view relationships and how they view themselves as a person, that they can be themselves in relationships. That's what you're working on. You can be yourself in a relationship. And maybe they have manifested a relationship for the wrong reasons, and now that the relationship that they're in they don't maybe feel like it's even for their highest and best, but they don't know how to move beyond it or past it or move away from it or whatever. It's like they feel like they ended up with something that was great. That was everything that they asked for. That was a complete blessing, but it turned out to just be, maybe it wasn't a blessing in the end. So, Page of Cups. Page of Cups, when it's a block, this is someone very insecure, someone who hasn't had a lot of support, who feels very abandoned and alone, who is critical of themselves to the point where it's just constant negative self-talk, negative all the time. And it attracts in negative people, or it just brings out more negativity. Their worldview could be also off very much. Their philosophy could be very off. So if they had a change in philosophy, then that would take away all of that grief, all of even the negativity. They would even be able to give themselves a break. They could have such high standards of what they expect of themselves. It's unreasonable for anyone to live up to it, but they expect that of themselves, and they think that that's what the world expects of them as well, which of course it's not. It's just in their heads, and they can't get past that. It's embedded in them. What they long for is emotional and spiritual freedom, but to get that, they need to look at their philosophy, their fundamental beliefs. There need to be a little bit more flexibility. It's a bit too much bought into that black and white, good versus evil, having too high ideals. That just nothing and no one can ever live up to it. Waiting for the world to be a better place before they can start having emotional freedom. Lacking in their individuality. So therefore also feeling also that everybody's watching them. This is one of the stage cards as well. You can see there's 2 lines here. When you get the stage cards, there's a little bit of theater involved. There's a little bit of being on stage, being watched. So when it's just upright and positive, it's like actually showing people what you can do. It can mean going to job interviews, going on auditions, putting out an art portfolio, showing people what you can do. The proof is in the pudding, as I say. It's not even about you as a person. Like when the seeker has a good mindset with this card, it's like, I'm going to show them what I can do. It's not even about me. It's about what I can deliver. That's really good mindset. But when it's a negative, it's like, it's not about what I can deliver. It's all about me. There's a lot of shame. It's like they believe that they're just never going to be good enough. There's so much shame in that. And no matter how well they're producing, how much they are giving to the world, it's never enough. It's very hard for the seeker to make up their mind about important issues as a result as well. With the Knight of Cups, sometimes it can mean that the seeker is dealing with some they're dealing with people who are not showing you who they really are. So these are people who are putting on, again, it's putting on a performance, it's acting, lying, manipulating, can be criminal behavior, okay? Can be dealing with criminals, or the seeker is being pulled into some sort of criminality. It's issues here with a real unhealthy lifestyle that could just spiral a little bit out of control and into more serious things like criminality. Doesn't always have to be criminality, but sometimes it is. The seeker here could really underestimate someone. Someone seems maybe very benign. Someone put on the I'm a good guy routine, and that goes for both men and women. Someone's put really a mask on. They're such great people. And the seeker has lowered their guard. They go behind your back. This is someone who wants to get... In my case, this is someone who actually... This happened to me when someone was such a nice guy, but behind my back was actually trying to get me fired from my job. And was constantly playing mind games and turning people against each other. And the nice guy routine, of course, was all fake. Also, this person pretended to have artistic talents that he just don't have. And lied also about what he could do when it comes to skills. Had a fake, said he had jobs that actually would have needed a lot of skills and didn't have any of that. Was just all a lie as well. Talk themselves up. I've seen women do this again. I always meet these people in the workplaces. She had a messiah complex. She said all these great things she's done. She had helped so many people, blah blah blah. But she was someone who physically punched someone in a very vulnerable situation. So the opposite was true to what she was saying. So when this is a block, be careful who you are dealing with. Especially when someone is really the good guy, but then you feel like something is just a little bit off about this person. What you're saying and what I'm experiencing about you just does not add up at all. But sometimes the good guy routine is so well presented that when you see the truth, it's a huge shock. It's a huge shock. And I was shocked when I experienced this. I had dealt with this person for 6 years. And I knew something was way off. It's gaslighting constantly. But the good guy routine was just so convincing. And also when I tried to talk to people about the lies and the gaslighting, they was like, no, this is such a nice guy. That was what everybody would say. Such a nice guy. The nice guy routine is actually very dangerous. When someone has such a need to portray themselves as a nice guy, it often means that they're the opposite. Okay? Sometimes people would have a bit of a rougher kind of exterior. Or maybe they're just a little bit more upfront. Maybe they're a little bit more just tell it as it is. They have no need for the good guy routine. That tells me that this person really is going to be a lot easier to deal with. This is someone who's probably not going to go behind my back and try and get me fired. This is probably someone who rather just tell me to my face if I'm doing something wrong. Or just say, listen, maybe just sort it out between ourselves. But that's not Knight of Cups, unfortunately. Also shows up when the seeker is standing out a lot and they attract a lot of attention, and often unwanted attention, and again it's from the wrong types of people. So be careful what you're sharing about yourself. Be very careful what you're sharing about yourself. Don't share all your thoughts and your feelings and opinions about everything out there, because people will take that and use it. And especially when this card is a block, take care of your privacy, because someone will take that and use that. And I don't want to scare anybody, but it's like some people, you no idea what they're capable of. It's like they just don't have a conscience, unfortunately. So, Queen of Cups. This is a very beautiful card. When it's upright, it's such a beautiful card. I just finished drawing this. I'm making my own deck, and it has a good vibe to it. Like, it just came out so good. Like, it had the swan. I love swans. You know, this is grace, beauty, sensuality, imagination, talent. It has all the good things embodied in a person who brings out the best in others, who creates a beautiful home, who has a beautiful, wherever they go, it gets better where they are. That's Queen of Cups. But unfortunately, when it's a block, it's like the seeker is just not feeling that they can fit in. Perhaps they have all these good qualities, but where they're at, it's just they're not being able to use their good qualities. And it's often, unfortunately, showing up a little bit in the professional life. It's almost like they're a little bit too sensitive for the professional life. They could be very afraid to be laid off, or maybe they just can't find a job. Maybe they just feel like they're just too different. They don't fit the mold what the employers are looking for, because they're looking for just that square, like being a round peg in a square. And also being very sensitive to the point that they could be overreacting to a lot of situations. And in the workplace, that could end up then working against them, because it's like that sensitivity, unfortunately, it's where it's often, it just doesn't, when Queen of Cups is a block, it's almost like they're overreacting themselves, and they're kind of starting off on a kind of like a negative. And also when this card is a block, the seeker finds it really hard to concentrate. There could be too much emotional needs of others putting on them as well, so they feel completely bombarded with emotional stuff. So that they feel kind of like mind fog. The mind fog, I used to get that heaps. And they just like can't concentrate, and they end up just, it's hard to manage time, and the procrastination instead is happening. So losing kind of like not really understanding what is going on and how things operate. It's all the unwritten rules that is missed here. So maybe they're just, with their programming and their kind of subconscious beliefs and everything that they are, just doesn't fit where they're at. So with this card, when it is a block and you pull this for your situation, ask yourself, are you happy where you're at in your work? Is it easy for you to manifest financial abundance? Do you feel appreciated where you are? But it can be other areas in life as well. It could just feel like, sometimes with this card, when it's a block, it's like feeling you're in the wrong place, born in the wrong time, with the wrong people. I used to feel like that when I lived back in Norway. So ask yourself, do you need to move? Do you need to go somewhere where your consciousness and the consciousness where you're living are a match? That's the question to ask yourself with Queen of Cups when it's a block. Okay, so King of Cups. This is a King of Cool. When it is upright, it's really, I think it's one of the best leader qualities you see in this card. Someone who has this incredibly high emotional intelligence combined with intelligence, EQ plus IQ, together it's someone who's very tolerant of others, very good communicator. But when it is a block, it can mean that all those qualities for some reason is working against the seeker again. And maybe the seeker is too caring or to care a little bit too much, and therefore they kind of get used in some way. This card also speaks of wanting to escape emotions. They could be overwhelmed with emotions, or they're just not, they have their emotions there, but they just can't deal with their emotions. So they're trying to escape, and they often escape through work, but also they can also escape through an extreme lifestyle, sport, like an extreme sport, or cult, even like a cult living, like some kind of extreme belief, so that will just take over, and they don't have to deal with their emotions. They can just buy into this, live it out, and hopefully that will make everything better. Sometimes they escape into a completely different culture to what they grew up in, like completely different, so there's like night and day, far and distant, and then they can kind of live that reality out. They're just trying to get away from often their memories, actually. There could be PTSD, there could be complex PTSD, which is not one single traumatic event, but more like kind of long, being exposed to kind of emotional, maybe neglect over a long period of time that's caused emotional wounds in them. Also, this card, when it is a block, sometimes it means that the seeker has invested into something that they really had a lot of hope around. They invested that this was going to be the thing, but then it didn't work out, and then it's like the disappointment. So it's like they produce a lot of short-lived outcomes and results, but what you need to think of, this is a block. Think about the long-term goals instead. I feel like with King of Cups, you can easily turn things around actually as well. It's your obstacles, like there's a lot of luck here as well. Like maybe you also have relied a lot on luck, and maybe you feel like you can't keep relying on luck. You need something happening that you can depend on a little bit more than luck, because I feel like there's been luck here as well that has gotten you through a lot of the times. But the seeker really wants to be around emotionally mature people. Maybe they feel like people around them are very immature, and they're frustrated with that. There's happiness, this is home and home life, and if you can stop running and stop trying to escape the bad stuff, think of it like you are meant to hone in on a skill. You're meant to perfect a skill. You're meant to master something. That's always with the kings. But when it's a block, it's almost like maybe you're relying more on luck than mastery. So shift that and start thinking, where's your mastery going to be? If you don't know, ask the creator to show you. Something will shift and you will see what it is. That will bring you stability in the other areas of your life, including relationships as well. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. The cups are intense when it comes to dealing with blocks. Like when it's a block with the cups, it really is different from, I think, the other suits. It is more intensified. It is more personal. It's deeper. So maybe some of what I said sounded very negative, but the intensity of it doesn't have to be so negative. It's a scale, it's like, sometimes it is just intensely negative, but sometimes it's less so. Especially when you're dealing with negative people, one thing that I do is, as a creator, to make me impervious to the negativity of the person, and to help me just kind of give me thick skin. I mean, when I went through that, I've had twice that people have been so toxic in the workplace and motivated me to make taroingi. And just seeing what people are like. But in both cases, the people that did that to me had that good guy. It was once a female and once a male. They had that good guy routine going on, to the point of it's just a little bit ridiculous, to be honest. But the second time it happened, the good guy routine, he has perfected that good guy routine. And the mask is coming off, but it's very difficult when you're dealing with liars. It's not an easy fix on that. I mean, they can really, the ripple effect of their actions can be very damaging. What I do then as well, you can do this. If someone is, if someone is out there trying to hurt you, get you fired, trying to ruin your relationships, throw you in jail. Like people even try and get people arrested and put in jail, or get people just into trouble by getting them into wrong things, like pulling people into chaos. If someone is trying to sabotage you, they're trying to destroy you, put it out there energetically, that it's very obvious every time they go against you to try and hurt you and damage you, that it's very obvious to everyone what they're doing. So they get exposed very quickly, and that they get blocked, and that it stops them. So as soon as they try and destroy you, maybe they make up a fake account in your name, to post things in your name that you never said or did or anything, things like that, or accuse you of things and all of that, then put it out there. You can do this with your mind, that it becomes obvious. As soon as they do this, it's obvious what they're doing. Everybody can see what they're doing. So they kind of get the self-sabotage themselves, trying to take you on, trying to ruin for you. They're just ruining for themselves instead. Have strong boundaries with people. If you can avoid the negative people, if you can just avoid them, but in so many cases we can't avoid them. They're in our families, we're working with them. Ask the Creator to show you how to best interact with them in the highest and best way, with grace and ease, and to find ways of minimizing. Okay guys, and also now I'm going to work on a spread that I think will be great. I want to do the Pentacles block as well, but I'm going to work on a spread that is coming up that is going to be really good for you to see when think of a situation where you probably felt like, oh, I wish that didn't happen. Like, I wish this thing did not happen. And then, what if it didn't happen? Would that be for your highest and best or not? Maybe what happened was a bit of a sidetrack to take you out of a situation so that something much worse didn't happen to you. Maybe it was more of a detour to save you from something worse. So I'm working on a spread to look at those kind of situations in our life, because I'm experiencing now a lot of times that these sort of challenges that we're experiencing in our lives are actually more little detours to take us out of a situation where much worse things could actually have happened to us. Take us out, even if that means that we're being kind of shaken up to the point that we be forced to create a new mindset, because our old mindset would have led to absolute disaster. So that's what I'm working on, a spread to help identifying those situations in our lives, so we can see it more from a spiritual perspective, how it was actually ending up. Yes, it was hard, but it was better than what we would have experienced otherwise. Okay guys, so with that, I'm gonna get to work on Pentacles and then the spread, and I wish you all the very, very best. Bye everybody.